This segment of the news is brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
Welcome back. From police this evening, officials are looking into a stabbing that's left a juvenile seriously wounded. We understand the incident happened just before 4 p.m. on Pitt Road. The boy was taken to hospital. At last report, another boy was in custody, assisting police with investigations. In other news, the Public Hospitals Authority, responding to the Bahamas Nurses Union's claims that negotiations between the two have reached an impasse. Standing firm in its position, the PHA, in a statement, says it's open to further discussions to arrive at a compromise. Now, this all has to do with the amount of compensation proposed for a shift premium. You may recall the initial compensation offer called for nurses to work 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. at an additional $1.75 per hour. Health Minister Dr. Dwayne Sands says he spoke candidly last week with BNU President Amancia Williams.
I don't believe that there's any reason to do anything other than attempt to have amicable discussions with any of the stakeholders in health. We find ourselves with almost $750,000 worth of overtime just in 1 month, which is a phenomenal burden for the healthcare system.
The PHA maintains that successful implementation of the new shift system will establish a standardized 8-hour daily shift that will greatly improve the ability to roster nurses, improve the delivery of health care, ensure better patient outcomes, reduce the number of accidents and errors, and eliminate inequities of the current night shift system. Dr. Sands says the ministry is trying to balance the issue of an inadequate number of full-time staff with the most important need.
And that is the need for Bahamians to get the care that they want and deserve. And so where we are unable to provide that coverage with nurses locally, then we have an obligation to ensure that our critical care units in particular are staffed. And so yes, it is true that across the Bahamas, most of our critical care services are covered by non-Bahamians. That is true in the private sector, it's true in the public sector. And it speaks to a need to recommit for recruitment and retention, and that process is ongoing. So certainly we've been engaged, we remain engaged, and I don't believe that this is an ideal time to make the public suffer over a matter that we have the absolute commitment to resolve.
According to the PHA, while the standardization of shifts remains a matter for future discussions with the BNU, there are many matters the two share common ground on, including the need to promote the profession, a commitment to increase the number of highly trained local nurses, the expansion of opportunities for professional development and training for nurses, the need to ensure fair and equitable compensation, and the ongoing improvement and maintenance of the environment in which they practice. Meantime, the counter-proposal has been prepared and is being submitted to the Bahamas Union of Teachers. Education Minister Jeff Lloyd says formal negotiations on a new industrial agreement is set to begin within days.
I have had conversations with the President. The Deputy Prime Minister and his team has had conversations with the President, and of course the President has met with the Prime Minister. So, while there has not been formal negotiations with the union, there have been conversations and discussions, and those formal negotiations are going to begin. The government has appointed a particular labor negotiator who is also a part of the team, and those persons are going to be gathering with the BUT and formulating a way forward by way of an industrial agreement.
The minister's comments come on the heels of BUT President Belinda Wilson threatening that the ministry had 7 days to submit a counter-proposal. Minister Lloyd couldn't say whether he feels the union will be pleased with what's being proposed.
I believe that it is going to be a point of discussion, and it needs to be. We obviously are on the same page. We want what is best for the Bahamas by way of its educational system and standards. The union is committed to that, and so are we, naturally. And it's going to be a robust and I think a very lively conversation with the union and its leadership. Let's know again, the reason that it is important to have these kinds of the quality of relationship is so that these discussions, whenever and negotiations are not acrimonious and bitter and filled with tension, and I don't expect that they will be. We have had a lot of conversation between myself and the president and our executive team and the union's leadership.
Minister Lloyd anticipates discussions with the union will be fruitful and beneficial. A difference of opinion when it comes to how the government should approach the redevelopment of the Prince George Wharf. Former Tourism Minister Obi Welshcombe recently suggested using a model similar to that adopted by the Nassau Airport Development Company. But according to the man now in charge, Denisio Diagler, this is not ideal, and for good reason.
The NAD model has over $530 million of debt. 76% of that is owned by foreigners. So every time we cut a check to pay the interest, 76% of that goes to foreign companies. I think this is a better deal. Bahamians will control over 50% of this entity. To me, Bahamians participating in the debt, participating in the equity in a majority fashion, to me is a better deal. Empowering Bahamians, that's what we're all about.
The tourism minister added that the proposal UK-based Global Ports Holding has on the table is a win-win for Bahamians.
You get the substantial investment that you need. You don't lead to any additional taxes. You don't lead to any additional debt. There's a lot of money sloshing around in the Bahamas that's not able to find viable investment projects. This provides Bahamians with a mechanism to invest. You have no concentration in ownership, so as many Bahamians as possible will be allowed to invest in this. And you get the redevelopment of a port.
The port's redevelopment is said to be an investment of some $250 million. There's also a 25-year concessionary period to be considered. The opposition has, however, condemned the deal, charging that a foreign entity should not have control over the country's largest port of entry. Police Commissioner Anthony Ferguson's dismissing talks that investigations into that missing Oban file is taking a bit too long. This, of course, considering the issue was made public last April.
Let me just make it quite clear. It's amazing how people would want to question the time frame that the police department investigate matters. If you look around the world, investigations of such a nature is not done overnight. Some investigations take much longer than some, and we are a professional organization. And it's unfair for somebody to want us to complete a matter in a day. These incidents or offenses were not committed in one day. So why would we want to do that? We ought to be thorough. We owe it to the Bahamian people to be thorough in our investigation, and then the conclusion will come.
Now, the ongoing investigation has certainly not stopped government officials from pressing ahead with negotiations on an amended heads of agreement for Oban to construct a $5.5 billion oil refinery and storage facility in East End, Grand Bahama. In fact, chair of the Oban subcommittee, Senator Dion Folk, says Oban executives have been receptive to the proposed changes, which admittedly follow a series of missteps. Stay with us. A check on sports is up next.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.